Tyler.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock here and we're live. We'll get started. I did get some comments from some of the people that were watching online there that when we're throwing out questions to administration, especially during CAO update, they can't hear anything that they say. So I'll just ask if we do that to our administration to use the microphone when we talk into it. So with that, we will get started. The agenda is here. We have an addition of in camera for legal. Any other additions? As I see none, motion to accept as amended. Thank you, Councillor Gremlick. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So I'm just writing in camera here so I don't forget. CAO update. We'll start with you, Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Your Worship, and the members of council. I'll start with the good news story that all town employees are reported healthy from COVID-19 as of Monday, July 13th. And there are no incidents reported between July 5th and 11th. With that good story, and with regards to the finance department's major activities, the town's front counter has installed a plastic barrier which will improve the safety of the residents and the staff. Utility deferral program due to the COVID-19 is winding down. Therefore, all outstanding balances are due July 24th to avoid receiving a penalty. Further, the residents have until August 31st to pay the tax balance before penalties are applied. Our Public Works and Utility Group is continuing with their operation in the sewage lagoon's blow motor building disassembly to build a lab there to test the water, and preparation for asphalt patching, manhole repairs, street sweeping, grading our gravel roads, and hot mix crack sealing. Our Planning and Development Group has prepared reports for 7 items to be heard by the Municipal Planning Commission. They also issued a development permit for Big Fish Bay, which includes 130 campsites. Fire department has had 11 total calls over the past week from a variety of emergency issues. The department also assisted West Lock Fire Department with pressurized fuel training exercise at the Fire Training Center. Regarding our capital infrastructure projects, the tender for Lift Station C force main is prepared now. We are continuing to deal with the raw water line issues, sewage lagoon updates, Hilltop Reservoir construction, and Glory Land road rehab tender. As per the road maintenance program in 2020, the contractor finished the maintenance work in northeast and northwest quadrants last week. And asphalt milling in southwest quadrant is complete by now. Our community service department has been dealing with a variety of issues and projects. The matters that they have dealt with last week were animal attack, tourist education, speeds on roadways, noxious weed removal, cleaning and roof patching for MRC for the summer, and roof leak repair at the Legacy Center. They also relaunched MRC on Monday, and the residents can now book specific activities in the field house. The Wildfire Legacy Center will reopen for bookings, provided that we follow the province's COVID regulations. The photo radar speed enforcement will resume on July 20th on a variety of the roadways. Aquatics will remain to be closed, but the senior support work from the Community Service Department will continue. With this, it concludes my update, and myself and the staff are here to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from council. Couple comments that I would throw out there. First off, great to see lots of asphalt going down. They're doing the crack sealing. You know, our roads definitely took a beating. We started with some great work on potholes, but just for the public so that they are aware, we typically do $100,000 worth of patching this year. We're doing significant more amount throughout different areas. So it's great to see that that's happening right now. I had a comment in finance. You guys made a comment on here about there's 3 new business licenses issued, which is exciting for us because we're on this path of economic development. If there's any way though that in the CEO update that they could include what they are, or type, even, you know, if types of business or something like that, I think that'd be, you know, that's the stuff that we'll eat up and obviously the public would love to hear about as well. And I had nothing else. Oh, fire department. I just want to say out to them, you know, sometimes these guys get busy and we kind of skim over them. It was interesting. I was talking to Alex on, I think it was Saturday, and it was just as they were coming back from their boat rescue out on the lake, tragedy averted, which is great. They'd had 9 calls in the last day and a half. So things are still continue to be crazy busy at that. And when you think that's a volunteer organization, 9 calls in a day and a half is a lot to take on. So great work to those guys. Councillor Busk.
In regards to the patching and stuff going around town, I know over by ATV that looks much improved. I'm just wondering if you could look into it. I can't remember off the top of my head. This portion of Main Street from the tracks down to 7-Eleven on the west side, West Lane, was that ever considered for milling and redoing? Because it's falling apart in my mind.
I would have to look. There's a map on our website, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, at the moment, I don't have the information,
Yeah,
but
no,
I can
just-
get back to you later.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I do hear that our, I don't think we talked about it last week or not, but our truck has shown up again.
Yep.
That went missing. And actually the great staff at Ford, apparently the person decided to spray paint white paint all over it there to kind of blend it in. But Ford was able to clear it all off and it looks like it's brand new again. So great job, and we're excited to get our equipment back. With that, we will jump into reports and new business. First one is from Mr. Roland Schmidt. That screen isn't doing anything, so feel free to just push it down so you guys can talk better into the mic, especially with a mask.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So the purpose of tonight's report is just to request the release of the Alberta Social Housing Corp grant funding to the Heart River Housing Association. Just to give a little bit of background, after the rebuild in Slave Lake, there was funds designated for the for housing. Working with our prior CAO, Gordon Lundy, he reached out to Lindsay Pratt just to get a status update on that project, as the funding was set to expire at the end of this year. And if they didn't request any of that funding, we would be sending it back to the province. So we've worked with Lindsay there, and he's sent us an invoice and is requesting the release of the funding. And I am just coming to council to ask that you release the funding.
Okay, so basically we've been administering it for housing the entire time. We're going to put it in housing, so we have to stop. We can stop accounting to the government for it all the time and see that project move forward, hopefully with their construction. Councillor Busk.
Make a motion that council approves the payment to the Alberta Social Housing Corp for the remaining grant recovery funds in the amount of $275,415.97.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Roland. Okay, Christina, credit cards.
Hi, everyone. I hope you had a chance to look at the report there. We've been working hard to kind of find a solution for people who want to pay with credit card. Because right now we currently don't accept that at the town office.
Right.
But we also don't want to incur a cost with the town. So we actually found 2 companies. We did some research, and actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of show you on the screen because it's a lot easier to explain.
We weren't ready for that.
Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna log in here. Explain it when I can show it.
We like pictures.
So I'm actually gonna bring you to their sites. And then I'm gonna show you a sample of one site that's using one of them. One of them's Option Pay. They only accept credit card. And they build a platform for you. It has the Slave Lake logo. They'll do everything for you. Set it up exactly how you like. All the data is stored on a server, a secured server. We do not get any of the credit card information.
And that's Pay Simply, that's that one, right?
Option Pay, I'm talking
Option
about here, yeah.
All right.
That one there is used by a couple towns. Town of Tabor is one of them that I'm actually going to show you. Okay, so I'm just going to go to their website here. Oh, all right, guys. I'm just going to see if I can hook up the next one. Let's try that again. It worked this morning. There we go. Okay, so this is actually their website, but they build a website for you. They do have kind of like a screenshots to kind of show you how it would look. So here's the one. So you'd go to, of course, our logo would be here. And then you go down here, you would enter your information. It would send the recipient receipt, as well as we would get a receipt and we would have to manually enter the payment into our software system. So if I go to Town of Tabor, they're the ones who are using it now. I really like their site, so I wanted to use this one as an option. So here they talk about payments online. They use the Option Pay. They put this right on the website. And then they also have samples. So they set up samples on how you do your payment, where you see your account number, stuff like that. And then they also talk about, you know, here's the website, what is Option Pay? And their fee schedule. So we could click on that and it takes them right to here, which shows their fee schedule. So depending on what transaction they're paying, it lets you know how much of a fee that they're going to be charging. So this would be the fee. So they have a fee structure there. And that's automatically charged to the person who is making the transaction. It doesn't actually get charged to the town. Go back to the town here. And you just click on here. So this is what ours would kind of look like, but it would have the town of Slave Lake. And then you would enter your credit card information down here, the amount. So if you were to go, I think that would go, it already shows you what the fee is going to be. You can see here, the $2 fee. So it'll be $32.
Okay.
And then you can pick, this is utilities, and then it sets it up. You need to put your account number, service address, an email, so you get a receipt. And then any comments like, you know,
Stop taking all my money. Kind of
something like
Okay.
that, right?
Yeah.
And then you submit. So I just kind of wanted to show you the site so you kind of understood how this site worked.
Okay.
The other sites, I'm just going to click to, so they actually have 3 links that you display on your site. And it brings you, so this one's the tax one. It brings you here. And it's just like online banking. So you enter your payment in. I've actually tested it out. I did a transaction for my utilities. I paid something through e-transfer because Pay Simply is actually quite different. They have different pay structures. So if I go to the actual website here, they accept all major credit cards with a 2.5% fee. Canada Post, you can actually pay money at Canada Post. They give you a code, and then you go onto the website and you enter the code in. They accept e-transfer, and that's the one I did. It was fairly easy, and it came through within a day, 24 hours. They accept PayPal, PayBright, and this Alipay. They also have an app. So I actually really like their site. Everything's secure, nothing's stored. Moneris is actually the one that they use. So that any data is always stored through Moneris, which is a highly well-known security. And you just enter all the information through here. So it's just the links. So this is they've got taxes, utilities. So it looks like this. And then AR. And it comes through pretty quick. The only reason I like this one is because it gives everyone different options, right? Like, what if you don't have a credit card and you want to send e-transfer? What if you want to use PayPal? So it gives you a little bit more options. The only thing is we just need to put these links onto our site. And then it takes them directly to this screen here.
So to be clear, they've already built links for the town of Sligo?
Simple Pay Simply has.
Okay,
They built it for us to try to use and test out. That's the reason why they built it for us. And if we wanted to get, like, it's not on our website, it's not usable. It's only usable for me.
yeah,
And I've played around with it and I've sent some payments just to see how it went through. It automatically uploads to our software. You don't have to do anything manual. Everything is just automatically uploaded and processed. Where the other one is we get an email and then we manually have to enter it. And it
Okay.
only accepts credit card. So I just wanted to give out these two options that we found. The fee structures, the other one has more of a, Option Pay has more of a display of what their fees are, where this one just gives you the percentage. So if you pay $30, you're going to be paying 2.5% fee on that $30.
right.
Right. So, and
Quick question for you here.
So this is, you had utilities, you had taxes, things like that. Are we gonna have the option for recreation passes, things like this to be able to be paid? Camps, things like this, or is this just going to be for finance options?
This would be just for the town office option because community service department has ActiveNet. ActiveNet is
Their online software.
So ActiveNet's the booking program, and ActiveNet using the booking program is also their payments provider as well. So that system is fairly well integrated into that type of world. What we can offer here is utilities, taxes, and regular receivables. Some of the benefit on that one would be business licenses. While there is stores in town, there's some of the bigger names are actually head offices in other parts of Canada. And so this is giving the ability to come on our website, pay online, and not have to mail a check halfway across the country. As well, normal receivables and stuff like that. We're getting a lot of feedback that it's like this type of option to be able to interact with the town, but paying Visa. And so, for a free thing, this is I guess the goal and the outcome for that.
yeah, and ActiveNet does accept credit cards.
Maybe some interconnectedness with community services there, where their system is very self-isolated.
And they
Okay.
accept credit card there through ActiveNet, so we don't.
Okay, other questions?
I guess another thing I should mention is Pay Simply actually integrated this because Canada Revenue Agency reached out to them to build this. So it ended up a lot of municipalities started to use it because it was actually going further in because Canada Revenue Agency wanted to have it this way too. So
Okay. Other questions, comments? I will say, Pay Simply seems to be a little bit clearer to the end user versus the tiered transaction one. And that tiered transaction one, some of them you get up into some bigger dollar amounts there. It's crazy expensive.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I do like the percentage option. I don't love that they have to click on all these different links for all the different ones because then theoretically, as we add more services, you could end up having 10 different links and you better hit the right one to go to
Yeah.
the right piece. But the fact that it is linked with CRA and that sort of thing, I think, and the biggest issue is that it integrates with our own software, so we're not duplicating our work. I'm a big proponent of systems and making things easier. That there's always a difference between working smart and hard. So this seems like we're working smart and not hard. So, I'd be leaning towards the Pay Simply option, which is also your guys' recommendation.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? If not, Councillor Ferguson.
We'll make a motion that council directs administration to implement Pay Simply as third-party payment provider for the town of Slave Lake.
Okay, any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, economic development website. So this one was tabled from last time. Chris is here, but I don't think we have, I'm not sure if we have any questions for him. So this is one that we debated last time, had some concerns about costs. One of the things is we met and had one of our early meetings here with our consultant that we've hired to help lead us through some of the economic development stuff. And so got some clarity on the benefit and the timing and the necessity of doing this. So definitely feel a little bit more comfortable making that motion. But any other questions, comments from council? We're a pretty quiet group tonight. Councillor King.
I'll make a motion that council approve the creation of a new economic development and tourism department header for the town of Slave Lake website in the expense of $7,758.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we're making good time here. So let's jump into committee minutes. So David, for your benefit there, usually our committee minutes, we used to do a thing in the past where we would go through and talk about the minutes that were physically in our packages. But sometimes for the time it takes for them to get approved and to come back, we might have had multiple meetings since then. And so usually we'll just give verbal updates on kind of where things are at today. And so we'll go through the list now and go through that. So intermunicipal committee, we actually meet tomorrow with our friends EMD. The biggest topic there is around the future of the fire services. We have some, we've had some provincial assistance that expires in 2021. And so we need to come up with a long-term plan. So behind the scenes, council's been working on that. And so we have a plan to share with our MD partners tomorrow. And our intention is to bring to Tri-Council in September, as there's some remaining funds in the Fire Smart pot that would help guide that program along. With as busy as our fire department continues to be, it is very prudent that we make some decisions sooner rather than later. So excited to have that discussion tomorrow. Watershed.
So we had a meeting on June 18th. So far to date, we haven't received our 2021 operational funding. We did, however, receive a $20,000 grant from Vanderwell for 2020. We worked through some bylaw amendments in preparation for our AGM, which is set for October 2nd in High Prairie. Water quality monitoring has not been going as easily as normal, as the lake elevation is so high and roads to accesses are flooded. There's 6 more sampling events left for the season, if we can get out there. We've been in contact with local resorts and campgrounds about having pop-up booths on Friday afternoons or evenings to get education out about watershed. Also creating a display to have set up at the library over the summer. And our town staff here were asked to provide feedback on the watershed implementation plan. And kudos to Lori. Megan had nothing but great things to say and about the information she provided. AGM, we have some board of director positions available up for election at the October 2nd AGM. We're looking for a forest sector representative and an alternate, agriculture sector and alternate, cottage owner and country residential and alternate, non-government organizations and an alternate, And pending approval of the proposed bylaw changes, a tourism and economic development position and an alternate, and a sport fishing and hunting position and alternate.
Okay. Any questions?
It was a long meeting.
Yeah, fair enough. You talked about all those positions. Okay, there's no questions. Chamber of Commerce didn't meet. Housing Authority, Julie usually does that because. Okay. Okay, so I will provide some stuff. So I've been working with Councillor Brandel and Councillor Pearson there. One of the big things is we've been advocating, lobbying for construction of a new 20-unit multi-unit building over in the northwest area. We're going to remove some old units and replace it with some new stuff that is a little bit more functional, what we need, and should be more cost effective. We've been working on that for a number of years. And unfortunately, that project continues to drag its feet. We have reached out to our MLA a number of times for help. And so we had discussions. We had a meeting set up in May that we were supposed to go and meet with the Minister of Housing. And that got put off during the COVID. And so our MLA, though, was able to meet with her directly. And had a meeting set up for, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. So we ended up having a teleconference here approximately 2 weeks ago with the MLA to brief them on the update and status of the project. Because our frustration is that there is actually money allocated. There is a variance because the project has morphed a couple of times from what the province decided they wanted to what they think we do. I did ask our MLA for an update on how his meeting went with the minister, but I've yet to have a response. So emailed him today and still waiting. So hopefully we'll hear some of that soon. However, I did get an email from Linda Cupping today that got sent to Brad, myself, and her, and Julie, sorry, in regards to having a meeting. So Linda is in charge of, I apologize, her actual title, I think is like Executive Director of Capital and Investment for housing. So we've got a conference call coming up with her on the 22nd. Oh, you're sharp. I like it. On the 22nd. So we'll see where that goes, but we continue to advocate for that project. I think it's fun. It is something that's desperately needed for our community. It would help housing. It would help the province. It is frustrating that it's taking so long, especially when there is money set aside for it. So I look forward to some feedback from our MLA on where that's going and hopefully some guidance from the ministry on the 22nd on how we can actually move that project along. Any questions? Okay, Tri-Council Health.
All right, so we met on the 9th. So we have 0 active COVID-19 cases. There was a message sent out on Facebook from Driftpile that said they had 5, but AHS isn't privy to that information. So this is where it's nice to have Tri-Council because Irene Twin was able to confirm that for us as between the nations, they discussed that and they received a letter. So that was really good for her to be able to confirm that for us. We're still doing.
So sorry, was it 5 or 8?
5.
It said 5.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I've heard 5, I've heard 8. AHS told me 2. It's been interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
5. Okay.
So the construction on the nursing desk is still on hold. We filled some positions for nursing with some grad students. Births are up, so we can still have babies in Slave Lake. For all of you that are wondering if we can have babies, we certainly can have babies. Our 9th physician should be here. They start their practicum right away and then have 3 months and then we'll be here. Our concern though, which is going to be a concern going forward with having some professional people moving to town is childcare. So, we've lost an NP because of some childcare issues and this 9th physician we have coming is going to have some childcare concerns if we either don't have more room at the daycare or more licensed day homes is what we're finding. So we're working with the daycare, we're working with the daycare board. Chances are next March, when the funding is gone for the $25 a daycare probably won't be an issue. But right now we're still in a predicament with childcare. So that's kind of where we're at with that. We hired 2 MPs. They both started yesterday on the 14th. So we have those. Monday to Friday, walk-ins and scheduled appointments. Evenings and weekends, we are still closed. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate staff to staff all of that. And we also need to make sure that we don't burn out our staff that we have right now. We still have some people working from home for some childcare issues. We had 677 phone consults last month. So it's working very well. They were, kind of nervous how it would work. It's new, seems to be working well. And I don't think we'll see it go by the wayside. So right now we were at 0 wait for doctors and nurse practitioners. It's now a 4-day wait for doctors and a 2-day wait for a nurse practitioner appointment. Our no-show rate was 4.4%. For June, so we're under that 6, which is looking very good for us. Let me see. Oh, and there was some concern brought up if we can accommodate the patients when our Swan River doctors have given their resignation. Can we accommodate their patients? So they've given an estimated number of 1,000 patients that they would have. And yes, we can easily accommodate that. We only have 1 doctor right now that is close to their patient panel total load. Otherwise, no, we are very much capable of handling all those people. I think that is it, unless my counterpartners were there. Oh, yes, Medivac is back. Back to regular scheduled stuff. EMS, they're back to regular operations. They're still looking for 1 advanced care paramedic, and there's still no double patient rides for EMS as well. And still no updates on the facility for our EMS department and people there. But we have worked on it. We will continue to lobby for them. They're always thankful that we're lobbying for them. As a health advisory committee, it's still on our portfolio to continue pressing forward. But until AHS gives some capital investment dollars into this area, we will probably not see much happening there. But we will not let it go by the wayside. So yeah, that's it for health for me. And that will put us at 9 doctors. So we'll be at our complement, and so we're doing well.
So with 9 physicians and having a full complement there, the 2 NPs starting, is there a prediction that it's sometime in the future we're going to see regular hours at the walk-in clinic again?
Yeah, but not right yet, of course, because it's summer, so there's people on vacation and everything is still up in the air with COVID, right? As if there's any symptoms, you have to stay home for a certain amount of days. So right now it's not looking, which bring some more people into the RER and the emergency stuff. But I mean, there's not much we can do about that right now. We're doing the best we can with what we have. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that you guys continue to advocate for the ambulance pay. I know that's one that our council's been fighting for a number of years.
Maybe
it does get taxing when we continue to, the majority of our lobbying is always for provincial assets, for provincial employees, the provincial responsibilities, and very few times we're asking for stuff for ourselves. But I understand that finances are an issue, and we'll continue to do that. Moving right along, Tourism Society.
We've been working really hard behind the scenes, and we'll have a formal announcement in the next 7 days for the region here.
Okay. Something exciting coming, I hear.
Something exciting.
Something big.
Mom's the word, though.
Mom's the word.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Any questions on that cryptic announcement? As I see none, library.
So the library is back open with limited hours and limited capacity, but we are open. They're waiting on some plexiglass, which took a little bit longer, which you can foresee for sure in the world right now. The plexiglass people are making millions. So we had to wait for that. We won't have, you'll have to book a computer to use a computer, and the children's area and the children's computers right now won't be started up. It's just so hard to keep that clean and things out of kids' mouths and hands and that kind of stuff. So we'll continue to do a lot of stuff still virtually, and it's going very well. We have great response back for the virtual things they've been doing. So it's been nice. We did our performance review for our manager. We're very happy with our manager. She takes care of the library very well. We don't have any problems. We don't have any complaints. She works well with the MD and the town for budget and for people. So it's really nice. Her staff, they do a really good job at the library. So it's been going well. The art wall, so we have some artwork that comes, but it has to now go into quarantine. So it'll be up at the end of August, and then we'll have that up and running. Our stats look a little different now because they're more with like how many things were posted, reached, views, clicks, engagements. So it's a little different now reading the stats than it was before. And we don't have any gathering of the magic because that is still a province-wide thing. And so they're still doing that. We have some craft in a bag video though.
It's Magic the Gathering. Not
Oh, Magic of the Gathering, whatever it's called. I still think it's great. They still have Lego stuff. They do a Saturday afternoon class. They've been doing some trivia. Our archives girl has a place now for Rocky. So I cleaned out Rocky out of the kids' sport room. There was all the stuff from the Arctic Winter Games didn't have a home. So I gave it a home to the library. And so now it's on top of the shelf where the fireplace is. There's a big shelf. And so they've incorporated up there. So it's nice to see that he has a home again, the flag's up there. They have the posters with all the pins and that kind of stuff. So it's been working well. My only concern that got brought up to me, Joe, was for you. We got a nasty email to a library board member with your stupid and dumb words in there. And I guess it didn't make other people very happy. So I said I would bring it up. I'm the chair of the library. So if there's some spelling mistakes, please don't tell me about them because I can barely spell my own name. But we can do a better job and I can help you if you need to get that handled. I'd be more than happy to help you with that instead of an email like that to our board member that didn't appreciate it. So that's it for us for the library.
Another cryptic question coming from my mind, but I'll leave it. Okay, any other question or any questions about library? Going once, going twice. Okay, naming advisory.
Haven't met.
Community futures.
So we met on June 18th. All of our staff are still working remotely and they're actually finding that it's working quite well. Working so well, in fact, that we're looking at leasing out our office space to smaller businesses or businesses that need a boardroom. So we're looking just to utilize our current leased property for low-cost solutions and office spaces and services. So we're looking at different options. If you want to rent it for a month, 3 months, and you'll have your own receptionist at the front that will be worked into it, and photocopying services, boardroom access, things like that, because working remotely seems to be working for us. We are also working on a community business beautification program. So this is designed to assist rural communities within the region to enhance the atmosphere by beautifying their storefronts and or store interiors. For example, facade improvements, new window signs, interiors, and repaint, flooring improvements out front, and replacement of lighting fixtures out front. So it's a program actually focused for our downtown core that they're trying to get together and do low cost or zero interest loans to help beautify and start beautifying downtown. So that's a work in progress, and they're still kind of working out the kinks. It would be a maximum of $15,000. And like I said, low interest or 0% interest rates. Our youth programmer is contacting schools to arrange future Head Start and business classes and Lemonade Day programmings. We also have started a Shop Local campaign and partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and Stingray Radio to shop local campaign. The project is just currently rolling out, but it's to help promote not only local businesses, but also teach locals how to make the most of the local shopping experience, including the Fan Saves app. COVID-19 loan recoveries. As of that meeting, we had 54 applications, 12 loans approved, and we had given out $352,500 and lots more applications since.
Okay. Questions? I see none. CEC.
So we haven't had a meeting and we're hopeful to set one up in September. Just still a lot of changes at the college and with the college being closed. So as soon as we have one, I'll bring an update.
MPC.
Next meeting is Thursday.
ISDAB hasn't had anything. Waste. So I'm going to take waste. So the our last meeting was a good discussion. I alluded to some of it here in council last week, but our biggest issue with waste continues to be the fact we've had some major staff turnover. So actually our last meeting wasn't since January. And it's great to see that we've got some great stability in staffing. And so things are, we've got some dedicated people that are passionate out there. And so that's working well. But waste continues to be a volume-based business. And we're seeing our volumes decrease. And so a lot of our input costs remain the same, whether people are bringing lots of garbage or little garbage. But all our revenue is tied to how much waste that they bring us. So, you know, with the thing that with COVID as an example, you know, the amount of industrial, commercial waste that we're seeing has obviously declined a bit, and it's having a significant impact on our revenues. We saw a deficit of over $100,000 in 2019. And so that includes the municipal contributions that the town and the MD are already making to balance the books. So we have some discussions coming up on, you know, basically how do we manage this monster as we move forward. Basically, there's a, you know, our biggest issue is I think we need to aggressively look at how we manage waste as a whole and look at our whole program and say if maybe we need to be more versatile. Maybe we need to stop taking waste. Maybe we should truck it like some of these other companies are doing and just get rid of it. I can tell you the cheapest, easiest option right now would be to send it somewhere else, because basically what's happened over time here, and where our situation is not unique, there's a number of rural communities are dealing with the same issue. They've built these big mega cells, and so basically it's like competing with Walmart for waste, that it's cheaper to just send it there. Our issue is with landfills, there's a liability there that has to be managed. We have to manage that liability for 50 years. That's what it takes before a cell is actually finally closed. And so those input costs remain the same. So trying to balance with the fact that, yes, it would be cheaper to send it somewhere else, but we still have to deal with these costs. It makes sense to keep taking it, but our revenues are going down. What can we do differently? Maybe it becomes a transfer station. Maybe we get into a little bit more business of garbage. Who knows? Lots to figure out, but I'm definitely throwing it on the radar to say, hey, this is a concern. It's going to be a big one during budget. Landfill Commission will continue to discuss it and see where it goes. One of the most significant changes the public might notice is we talked about composting. And so it was an interesting debate about composting because there was a bit of a discussion around I don't want to go into too much detail here, and I just don't know how to not talk. So I'll just try and do this as fast as I can. But, basically it's the thing, should we expand our composting program? As an example, there's lots of cities that are doing it, and take more things in. Do we do an encouragement to get people to, cutting grass that you mulch and keep it on your own property versus sending it out to us. It's more environmentally friendly for your own property. But on the flip side of that, we're trying to get waste. So do we want to start taking people to bring us less waste when we have a revenue issue? That's a problem that kind of develops in the bubble. The other issue is that the one thing I've learned about recycling is that it is a commodities market. And right now that commodity sucks. The rest of the world usually buys our recycling and now they're not. And so it's also the expectation of what the commodity that they buy. Example, if I'm going to buy plastics, are they all super clean, that they've all been rinsed and washed and whatever else before they go? If not, it degrades it to a point where it's not even profitable or they can't recycle it. And so as Canadians, I will say as a whole, we're not A, great at recycling to begin with, and B, we're not great at actually putting those recycled materials in a condition that we can actually get it to an end product. So a lot of them just end up in a landfill anyway. And so you're dealing with all these different things. And so composting as an example, we said basically what happens right now, we take this composting material, we set it at a site up there. We're not handling it properly. It takes extra time. It takes extra money and manpower to basically put it in one spot and then later move it to another spot. We said, you know what, let's just stop. We're basically going to start taking the composting, putting it right into the cell instead of moving it twice. What does that mean at our recycles depot? We're going to continue to take grass clippings. We're going to take the tree trimmings and that sort of thing, but they are just basically, it's becoming more of a transfer station than it is a composting pile as well. So lots of balls bouncing around with that one. I don't have any great answers for you, and other than the fact that we need to look at how we do business out there because it's costing us a lot of money. And so we'll see if we can get a handle on maybe a different business model that limits how much money we're having to put in to keep the thing going. That's my quick version. Any questions? There'll be more discussions as we move forward for sure. Airport.
So we had a meeting on June 29th. It was a small agenda, but the airport forestry lease is coming up December 31st. So we motioned to approve another 5 years until 2025. That'll be subject, of course, of it being reviewed by the deputy minister in the Alberta government. The other big thing is revenue has taken a decent sized hit with COVID and a uneventful wildfire season. So we're approximately $27,000 down in our revenue from what we would normally expect. But with that though, expenses are also down. So Pierre, the manager of the airport there, is fairly confident that we can still stay on budget overall.
Great news.
Yeah.
Any questions on airport? Wildfire Legacy. So Wildfire Legacy, I'm always the one that doesn't have anything good to report. So we had a meeting yesterday. We had our AGM, which had to get done. We do have one public member vacancy, so we'll be advertising for that sooner rather than later. Our biggest issue, obviously, with the facility being closed, much like our own recreational facilities, we're seeing a decrease in revenue. The one silver lining in that is that actually this time of year is not a huge booking period for us anyway. We missed out on some meeting space, obviously, as well as some events that we had pre-planned. So the corporation as itself with the town that we hire to manage it, sometimes it's external bookings we get, and sometimes those bookings are ones that we create ourselves as revenue sources, which has been good for us in the past. Leader Cast might be an example of that. We were doing something with, I might get this wrong, but Banff Film Festival to do some screening of some stuff there too, and had to postpone some of those things largely because we had, obviously issues with our facility, but also issues with some of them, the ones that had the booking center that are delaying. So the discussion yesterday was to move forward and start accepting bookings again, as long as we can live within the restrictions. And so obviously the restrictions are different depending on what type of event is there. But we're excited to, hopefully start getting some more bookings in there and realize some revenue. The one big issue is that we also have tenants. And so one of our big tenants over there, and the biggest one, is the Slave Child Care Society, who has asked us for rent relief, basically for the month of April and May, that they do not have the funds to pay for it. They were not recognizing any revenue while they were closed. And so that hit is in the neighborhood of $25,000 that the corporation would have to then deal with. And so we made a motion at our meeting last night to two things. One, there is a federal subsidy program that works with landlords, the tenants, and the federal government there to try and recognize some revenue. So we directed our administration there to work on an application in conjunction with the Child Care Society to try and appropriate some of those funds back. The way that program works is basically a third is paid by the tenant, a third is paid by the federal government, and a third is paid by the landlord. So we'll have to look at the logistics of how that could actually work. We also actually reached out to the board to set up a meeting that we would like to meet with all of their board and go through some of their financials and understand the bigger picture there. That, you know, that deficit has to come from somewhere. And so we want to get into some good discussions about the future as a whole, because we also do recognize that, you know, $25 a day daycare, the subsidy that they've incorporated there, that actually doesn't help them when they're closed. So they're not recognizing any revenue there. And so we think the board kind of felt that there's likely a opportunity to work with the Child Care Society on a lobbying effort to our MLA to say, hey, we got a big issue here. And technically what happens is that, you know, the government of Alberta has put aside X amount of money for this program. And so for the 2 months that they're not administering it, that pot is still sitting there. So now the question is, what do they do with it? You know, I think there's an option to lobby there, and I think a strategy to lobbying to get some of those funds to offset some of their costs that continued whether they were open or not. The other issue is that some might think it might be more strategic to basically just extend the program past March for another couple of months. However, I will say as a community, we are struggling with the fact that we're on limited spaces. They can't really make modifications to their program because they're abiding by the terms set out in this grant that was created. And on the other side, they expect, and the expectation is that it will not continue, and that when it doesn't continue, that their model is going to change and we are going to have space. Knowing that it's only going to add a couple of months, it's probably not going to make a huge impact in the scale of people's lifelong childcare. We might be better to get out of it sooner rather than later, so that we have some options for the community as a whole. So obviously there's issues on both sides there, lots to think about, lots to figure out, but we're going to have some discussions with the board. But another one that's got some holes in it that we got to go try and figure out what to do with it. Any questions? Okay. Protective services. Disaster services, we have met Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeves Caucus and elected leaders. They had Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeves Caucus has been put off to the fall, but Northern Alberta elected leaders had a meeting by Zoom a couple weeks ago, and I missed it, but I did send out the minutes to all of council there for you guys to go look through. I'm not going to go through much of it, but they've got there's talk of doing more. It's interesting because, you know, even the Northern Alberta Mayors one, it is difficult for all of us to travel to go in and have a meeting for 5 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours, whatever it ends up being. You know, to drive to Grand Prairie for a 5 or 6 hour meeting, some of those guys are taking 2 days to make all that happen. And so there's a lot of discussion behind the scenes about maybe we should just be doing more Zoom stuff and less travel, which I am totally in favor of myself, but some of them love to travel, so it'll be interesting discussions as we move forward. High Prairie School Division is on here. We have minutes from them? Okay. Well, none of us sit on that board, so there's probably nothing there to add, except Councilor McGregor wants to.
No, I don't want to add anything to that, but can we add the High Prairie Children's Resource Center onto this? Is this where we should be giving that update?
Absolutely.
Okay. And how about the Homeless Coalition? Is this where we should be giving that update to?
Yeah, technically,
Like if we-
technically those aren't
they're not, well, they're committees. I got appointed to that High Prairie one.
So that one should be on there. The Homeless
Okay.
Coalition one is not, it's more of a community organization, but I know
Okay.
that we're playing part. At the end of the day, yes, we should have them on there. I think if we have representatives that are going, obviously one would know what's going on and what you're hearing. So I
Okay.
would say, Joy, you have the next two. Start with whichever one you want.
Yeah, no, not this one, but we haven't, like our High Prairie Children's Resource one, we just had that one meeting that I'd already talked
Okay.
about or whatever. I just noticed that it wasn't on here before.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll incorporate it. I will say that the staff is hired though, so we had them they were doing their training here last week. So I'm excited to see those programs starting to move forward because I know that left a gap there when Parent Length had ended. Joanna, you sound like you wanted to say something.
Okay,
Fair enough.
thank you.
And Homeless Coalition, nothing you want to talk about there?
Next week, I want to just gather a little bit more information before I.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, one of the things council had talked about in the past here was reaching out and having a more in-depth discussion, less about homelessness, but more about the vagrancy and some of the issues that we're dealing with. I was tasked with having some conversations with the judicial side of things because we see that that's a role that they would play in. But there is some legal stuff with that, so I'll talk about that in camera. I can't really talk about it in public. Actually, you know what? I don't see why I couldn't. I'll share something there because it's probably good information. So, one of the frustrations I would say when it comes to vagrancy is that, lots of times our bylaw and our RCMP are dealing with these people and they're being arrested. Then there's this period where they wait and go to court. Lots of times they get out while they're waiting to go to court. And they go to court and the judicial system says, hey, we're being unfair. We should try and help them do more systems, which I can understand is important. But one of the frustrations on the other side is you can't force people to go. And so some of the, one of the questions was, can the judicial side of that picture, add some components where it forces them to go to some of these programs because we can't, as much as we want to help and as much as the programs exist, if the person doesn't want to go, they don't have to go. Whether that be something with mental health, addictions, and so on and so forth, treatment centers, there's money to basically get people to a detox center and transport them, set them up. But if they're unwilling to go, then they don't have to go. And so then this circle just kind of goes around and around. And I will say it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for the RSMP. It's very frustrating for bylaw. It's very frustrating for this council that it just seems like a circle that never ends. So, we wanted to have some discussions with RCMP. We want to have some discussions with bylaw and some of these other agencies as we move forward and see if we could take a more targeted approach. But one of the discussions was around the fact that, we kind of need to loop in and work with the Crown prosecutors, work with the judges there to kind of have a combined community approach. I was not able to talk to any of the judges, but I did get to talk to the Crown Prosecutor's Office, who shared some insight, and I understand where they're coming from. But definitely they will not be participating in anything we did or any discussions. Their reasoning, is kind of around the fact that the whole idea of the judicial system is supposed to be impartial and it's not supposed to have predetermined outcomes and so on and so forth. And so just by even having any discussions with us, they basically bias the whole system. And so that hole continues to just be this black hole that we're sucked into that we're not going anywhere. So I am frustrated. Council is frustrated. I don't know where we're going to go with that one. Maybe some more conversations with Solicitor General. We've had some issues with crime and seeing some property being vandalized as, COVID's kind of opening things up and the weather's nice. We're seeing some more hits on our industrial areas. And we continue to be strangled by this issue of the judicial system that we're not making a lot of headway. So I don't have any real great answers for that. I feel like I'm the guy that just doesn't have any great answers for anything. But we'll continue fighting and see where we end up. Councillor McGregor.
So is this something then that when we go, I mean, we're not quite sure what AUMA is going to look like, but this should be something, I guess, that we start working on right now and sending a letter and looking for another meeting. I mean, you know, we've had a couple meetings. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a wall when I talk to some of those people. They just don't understand. And I know because we don't have as much crime as other areas, and we don't meet this requirement, and we don't meet that requirement, but it's kind of getting old telling our taxpayers that. Our vagrancy population, you know, the Friendship Center, when the MAP program was open, they kept the names and where these people are coming from. So, I mean, in all fairness, at the last Homeless Coalition, I asked then, why don't people then go home? So if I was to just go to another community, spend all my money, not get a ride home, party like a rock star, and then start couch surfing, wouldn't someone get sick and tired of me being uptown on Main Street, swinging at cops and the EMS, being drunk in public, peeing behind the buildings, puking? Wouldn't you be sick of that? Wouldn't someone try sending me home and saying, like, go back to Slave Lake instead of hanging out wherever I'm hanging out? Like, so I struggle with the fact that not all of these people are from Slave Lake. I feel like on certain days, people come into town, they do all their shopping, they bring other people with them, and then they forget half their carload or truckload to go back home when they go back home because they've decided they're going to stay and party, but then they don't go home. And I mean, and some of our vagrant people have homes in town, but the people that they live with are just so tired of them disrespecting their rules as well that, you know, they're kind of at a loss too. So, I mean, I'm at a loss with all of it, but I don't think we can give up. And I think maybe that's where we should be, like, you know, have a little bit of a focus for AUMA, make a couple letters right now, maybe send them out, maybe hit the city and have a couple meetings or schedule a few in one day if we don't have AUMA, and just go ourselves and at least try to talk to some of the ministers that have maybe a little more control, or at least we've said our piece again. Like, I feel like we've met with these groups. We've had these groups come here. We keep expressing and we just kind of are getting nowhere, and it gets frustrating. And I mean, pretty soon somebody else is just going to load a bus up and take everyone home, and enough is enough.
Ditto. I don't know what else to say. Like, I get it. I feel it. We're going around. I think it would be prudent to request a meeting with our MLA to go over some of these issues again and hammer, like, they're our representative to hammer some of this stuff home. And so I know we've shared this before, and, you know, maybe it's time to say, okay, what, you know, are you making any headway? What's going on? You know, it's a complex issue. Like, I get that most of these people have complex issues. And so one of the issues is that one person's complex is different than another complex. What's frustrating is that there's services that exist to help, but people have the choice. And I get why people have the choice, but if they don't and they continue to make bad choices, then our only option is enforcement. And then when we go do enforcement, we're taking resources away from other priorities that should be where they're spending their time. They're focused on this to basically they too feel like they're hitting their head against the wall because we started throwing stuff into the judicial system. And we have a system right now that is demanding more freedom and more equality and more patience and more whatever. And so I understand the reasoning for some of that as well. But it is not helping us deal with this issue that currently continues to grow. And I think it is important to keep saying it is growing. It is growing. We're seeing this vagrancy issue grow, and we're seeing more of them coming. We're seeing more of them doing activities. And as they go into the system and just get spit out, there's not a lot of fear for continuing to do anything differently. So, yeah, I don't know what to do. I think, have some discussions. Let's start with our MLA again. Let's have those. I feel like we're wasting the RCMP and bylaws time by even having those discussions with them because they get it and they're doing their job and they're trying, but we're just not going anywhere. So, yeah, I think we start with our MLA and maybe request some meetings with Solicitor General. We shared all of this a year ago when the minister sat in this room. but we haven't seen a lot of headway. And I am getting to a point where I'm very frustrated that all the financial resources that go into this type of stuff goes into cities because there's limited funding. And so there's not help for urban center or for these rural centers. And well, then maybe that, maybe it's time to look at an option where we take the people to where the services are set up to help them. So I don't know. It's getting a little bit bold out there too, but we're just like, we're hitting our head against the wall and going nowhere. And it's not like we've been at this for a couple of weeks. We've been at this for years and we're just losing. We're losing that battle. Another great update. Let's keep going. Well, you know what? So I'm going to make a motion that we request a meeting with our member of the Legislative Assembly to discuss ongoing provincial issues at his earliest convenience, to reiterate some of the stuff that we already talked about. Please include that in the motion. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. And so we'll start there and see where we end up. Okay, so at this point, I'd accept a motion to accept all the committee minutes or the committee verbal updates as presented. Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump into our management task list. And so David and I didn't talk about this ahead of time, but as this is David's first meeting on his own with this, because this is only like week 2, right, David? Week 2, day 8. So the management task list, we've done it in a number of different ways in the past. One, we've just opened it up to questions and said, basically, council, do you have any questions on them? We would ask, and you can give us any updates on the items that are in here. Other times the CEO has decided to guide us through each one and just give us some updates. I think rather than put you on the spot for tonight, we'll just say, does council have any questions? And we'll leave it there. Okay, they do. Look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Councillor King won the race there, so you can start, and then we'll go to Councillor Ferguson and McGregor.
I was just looking for an update if we ever ended up hearing back from ACO Electric. Does anyone remember? About the franchise fees? We did the gas, but I don't remember about.
I think they did actually. I'll double check the agreements right now. You got it all.
Okay. So basically, for an update back in December, we asked to do an increase on the franchise fees. There's a whole regulatory process that it has to go through. I went to ATCO and notified them, but we haven't heard back on where that is. Maybe administratively behind the scenes it's already done with, but we should check on that one. I guess if it's already done, it should say completed on here. So we'll find that one out. Councillor Ferguson.
It's the same.
Same. Okay. Councillor McGregor.
And mine was about the outdoor piano. I'm guessing now that the outdoor piano will probably be taken off the table now with the COVID restrictions forever, right? Because if we had a piano that people could just play and use uptown, there's no way that we're ever going to be able to keep it clean. So I'm thinking with new restrictions coming that might be completely off the table.
Well, let's throw that question out to administration, go think about behind the scenes and come back. Part of that is that, part of that is like, God willing, we're going to get out of COVID at some point, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
we were just waiting on the Arts Council and I had seen that they gave their FCSS grant money back. So I'm assuming that this is probably not high, really right on their list with all the restrictions. So
let administration peek in the box and let us know if it should still be on this list or not.
okay.
It was community driven, so if the community is still driving it, there's definitely, I don't think council is not wanting to play in that sandbox, but if they're not, then let's take it off the list. Any other questions? Okay, at this point then, accept the management task list as information. Thank you, Councillor Gramick. I made a point to look right for a change, hey? The glasses are throwing me off, man. Like, it's really hard to look over there. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. That takes us into Mayor's Corner. Okay. I always get excited for summer because usually by then I'm I'm getting fed up and we're gonna have like, we're gonna have this month-long break. We cancel one meeting and we cancel another one. But that isn't happening this year. So with a new CAO, I'm excited with that. So Dave and I have been having some good discussions over the last week or so, getting him up to speed on a number of things. And I do feel for him. There is a lot going on, a lot of bubbles. And one of those things is that, it's always interesting to be a new counselor, because I feel like you spend 6 months just trying to learn the history on everything that we're talking about. When you're the CAO and now you get 100 people that are asking about it every day, you've got about 6 minutes to figure it out. He's doing a great job there behind the scenes, and glad to see it, but we're spending a bit more time together. Legacy meeting was interesting already. I talked about that one. David's also excited to meet with new people and connect with them. And so him and I met with the Reeve and the CEO of the MD last week, and we had a good meeting talking about some of our stuff coming up, our fire services agreement, just getting to know each other and styles and that sort of thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with our relationship with the MD. People are always a big part of relationship, and so we wish Al Winarski the best, but he is retiring at the end of September, so we're going to see a change in that relationship, and even our new CAO coming in, and then creates a change in that relationship as well. So with that, he's also setting up some more meetings. We're meeting with Chief and Mr. Mike McKinney here. I don't know if it's next week or the week after. So that's, the calendar starting to fill up with a few little things there that we're going to go do together, but that's good. I've been spending some time obviously getting ready for our meeting tomorrow with the MD. We're excited to share some of this fire services stuff and move it along. So that's happening behind the scenes, as well as council. I got to have a good discussion with our economic development contractor last week. Some people say, why are you doing economic development right now? And we would say, why not? This might be the best time to do it. And so we're excited to see that program moving along, and council, it's set up basically that the entire group of council is working on that initiative. So we have monthly meetings for a couple hours with our contractor, as well as some stuff behind the scenes. We've got some job postings out to get someone internally there that I think closed already or is closing soon. So excited to see what happens with that and what administration can bring forward. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a quiet summer, but that's okay. That's the way it goes. With that, I'd entertain a motion to go into camera, please. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Good night.